Good afternoon. My name is David Gallo. I'm the head of the AIFC Academy of Law, broadcasting from Nur Sultan, Kazakhstan today. Welcome to our panelists who are scattered across the world, as well as to our participants in the UK, Europe, Central Asia, the Middle East, and wherever else you're calling from. Welcome. Our goal at the AIFC Academy of Law is to prepare lawyers for international commercial law practice. So we look for ways to cross-train lawyers in multiple legal jurisdictions to make sure that they have the competencies and skills and knowledge that are required to operate effectively in an increasingly global legal environment. I'm pleased today to introduce the second webinar in a series called the AIFC Academy of Law Legal Talks. And the topic of today's event is Adapt or Fail. Will this be the COVID-19 legacy for law firms? We have an amazingly talented group of panelists today who have joined us. And it's truly our honor and privilege at the Academy of Law to host this event and to welcome them to the AIFC webinar series. Let me start with my friend and colleague and respected mentor of sorts, Mr. Mark Beer. If the technology age is the new Renaissance, then Mark Beer is the Leonardo da Vinci of legal tech. And I mean that sincerely. Mark, welcome. Nice to see you again. Mark Beer OBE is the co-founder of 7 Pillars Limited. Mark is a solutions-oriented, innovative, and client-centric lawyer with experience working in big law firms, in-house, in finance, in government, and in the judiciary. Mark was twice named as one of the top 50 most influential Brits in the UAE, as one of the 100 most influential people in Dubai, and by Forbes Middle East as one of the top 50 most influential expats in the UAE. Mark was appointed an officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in her 2013 birthday honors list for his work in strengthening relations between the UK and the UAE. Welcome, Mark. Kim Siegel is a co-founder of 7 Pillars Limited, an AIFC law firm. We are absolutely thrilled that you all are getting up and running. We look forward to supporting your efforts in whatever way we possibly can. Kim, having been in-house counsel for one of the largest South African financial services institutions, is a service-oriented, client-focused, and innovative lawyer who leverages her experience to ensure that the advice and guidance that she provides is practical, useful, and what her clients need. Robert Applebaum, Weber Wentzel Attorneys, South Africa. Robert specializes in M&A, project-related and other transactional work, and has advised a substantial number of South African and Asian-owned multinational companies in relation to their expansion into Africa. He is an expert in a number of African jurisdictions, including Ghana, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Mozambique, Namibia, and others. Robert has significant experience in the oil and gas, mining, infrastructure, power, construction, financial services, and healthcare sectors. Robert was formerly GC of an international water treatment company. He has been named in India Business Law Journal's annual survey of top international firms for India-related work. And he's an executive committee member of the Johannesburg chapter of the Indian Bar Association. Our fourth panelist is Ivor Ichikowitz, Executive Chairman of the Paramount Group. Ivor is a South African-born industrialist, social entrepreneur, and philanthropist. He began his career during South Africa's political transition in the early 90s, working to support Nelson Mandela's program of democratization, national reconciliation, economic and industrial normalization, and integration into the African continent and the global community. For more than 2 decades, he's built a number of successful businesses on 4 continents in energy, aviation, mining, retail, tourism, ICT, media and marketing, aerospace and tech, manufacturing, and via his family foundation, he has invested in environmental and wildlife conservation, education initiatives, responsible citizenship, and charitable activities. In keeping with his diversified business portfolio, Ivor has interest in mining, renewable energy, and midstream oil projects in various countries across Africa. So with that, our panelists are going to explore what do business clients and in-house counsel need in legal services, and what role can technology play? And with that, let me turn it over to today's moderator and master of ceremonies, my friend, Mr. Mark Beer. Mark.
Thank you so much, David. I feel I ought to do this in an Italian accent, given the introduction, but I won't. And today we are extremely fortunate to have what as a panel, what gives a 360-degree view of the way in which lawyers need to change. Lawyers need to transform what they do to better serve the needs of business. And we're absolutely blessed to have probably one of the foremost businessmen, global businessmen, yes, a philanthropist, yes, a lover of the arts, yes, into sustainability, but actually someone who has succeeded in developing markets where so many others have failed, including great success in Africa and great success in Central Asia. Ivor, it's a great pleasure to have you on board, and we want to hear from you what it means in business to have support from a legal team. What do you want? What's changing? What do you need faster? Where do law firms need to help you more? Where do your in-house teams need to do more? What do you want from technology to be able to help you succeed in business? Because I had a boss, I won't name him, fantastic guy, and he said, Mark, I've got a sales force which do business development. He said, I've got a legal team which do business destruction, and my job is to try and balance the two. Now, is that right? Is it still that way? We've got Kim, a co-founder of what is certainly the most innovative law firm in Central Asia because it is so new. Kim worked as general counsel to the biggest bank in Africa. She knows exactly what clients want, what demonstrating shareholder value is, and she knows sometimes the difficulty of getting what she needs from law firms. But that can't be said for Weber Wentzel, a network, one of the biggest networks in the world, Weber Wentzel Linklaters. When I was at MasterCard, we used them. I know them very well. They're certainly one of the foremost firms in Africa. And Robert's going to persuade us that big law can deliver on what Kim and Ivor say. I have a suspicion, though, that many law firms in this crisis are adapting to cope. And what we want to talk about is law firms adapting to win. What does adaptation to win actually mean? What does business want? What does in-house counsel need? Can law firms deliver? And if there's a gap, will technology fill it? That's an introduction to what we're going to discuss today. So without further ado, may I ask Ivor, what is it that really irritates you about lawyers, but can we keep it to under an hour? And what do lawyers need to do to support you in your endeavors worldwide?
So, Mark, I'm laughing because I've never heard a member of the legal fraternity kind of put the challenges of business so succinctly in such clear language. I will declare up front that I am a registered hater of law firms. Okay, I am a registered, declared, fee-paying member of the business community against needing lawyers. But having said that, I come from that perspective, not because I don't know and understand the importance of having the right law firm and the right internal counsel on side, but I have gone through my entire business career working in very, very difficult parts of the world and experienced how lawyers can help to make a deal happen and how they can spend a lot of time killing business and racking up huge bills. So, you know, from my perspective, the starting point is that engaging with a large law firm is a grudge purchase for me. Up until recently, I had a policy in my organization that out of a business that spans almost every continent, and in fact, I can claim that because until recently, even the Antarctic, and having an organization that works in some of the most difficult places in the world, I have had vast experience with international law firms that have cost us fortunes and added very little business. So our approach was always to say to all of our subsidiaries, of which we have numerous in our global group, you cannot engage a law firm until I, as the chairman, personally authorize it. And eventually that became a little impractical, so I kind of took that requirement away. But that was where I came from. But having said that, that is not a universal, it's not my universal experience. I'll take my experience in a place like Kazakhstan as an example. We embarked on the setup of a massive business in Kazakhstan. Massive. By Kazakh standards, by our standards, we set up one of the largest defense industrial complexes in Kazakhstan. And I couldn't find an appropriate law firm. 7 Pillars didn't exist. I couldn't find a law firm that could service me as an international customer who needed to translate between a Western way of doing business and the Kazakh way of doing business. I have to tell you, they barged into Kazakhstan without a suitable law firm, made 100 different mistakes, got misled and went down rabbit warrens and had to learn Kazakh law all on our own. And at that point, I changed my policy and I said, you know what, not doing that again. My law firm needs to be my partner. I need a partner who's going to hold my hand, take me into an environment where they act as both a cultural guide, where they act as a mentor, where they act as a business partner and allow me to go and do my business better without having to go through the pain of learning the environment that I learn in. And what I discovered is a lot of my Asian partners need exactly the same thing in the West. So I'm kind of a convert. I'm now I'm an appreciator of the value of the right kind of law firm. And I think the discussion and the debate needs to be around what that actually means and how you balance the fact that a law firm needs to bill because it needs to afford the best talent and it needs to be able to maintain the best talent, but it also needs to know when to turn around to the client and say, you actually don't need me. You're good here. You guys know what you're doing. You're business people. I'm there to help you, but I'm stepping back. And I think that this is the challenge that we need to find a balance between. And you're right, this can go on for an hour, but I'll hold it there and give comments as we go along. But good news is I am reformed. I do appreciate my friends in the legal fraternity. I just am now very careful about choosing the right ones.
So you're looking for someone who knows whether you need pethidine or anodine, right? You need someone to take the pain away, but not too much. You want someone to be a business partner, but you don't necessarily want them to hold you back. Kim, how do you translate that as an in-house counsel, translating between the needs of entrepreneurs and successful business people trying to develop a business in a difficult environment around the world, and law firms who deliver, as Ivor said, against an hourly rate in a structured and measured classical way? How do you combine those two needs?
Thanks, Mark. It's obviously quite challenging. I come from a financial services background, which is a highly regulated industry, as everyone knows, with its own challenges. And in order for me to balance the regulatory requirements with the business risk appetite, having come from an external law firm background, was very challenging. To me, what was a key success factor for me was ensuring, as Ivor has said, that whilst as in-house counsel, I worked for the company I was providing the advice for. In order to ensure that I actually knew what they wanted, I needed to get in and understand their business. So a lot of time was spent not necessarily applying the law, but rather understanding their business, understanding the regulations, weighing up the risks, and trying to enable them to do business as opposed to putting stumbling blocks in their way. So that was the internal piece that I had to manage. Ideally, the in-house counsel will do the majority of the work themselves without going outside. However, this is not always possible, and often the in-house counsel doesn't have the expertise. They do need to go out. Because I came from a big law firm myself, I knew the tricks of the trade. I know how they bill. I know that in an hour, lawyers can literally bill for 24 hours because I used to do it myself. So when I would consult with external counsel, I would have the partner and 35 of his closest associates. And we were very careful from a cost perspective to manage that. There are obviously budgetary constraints and concerns because we don't want to rack up legal fees, ultimately impacting shareholder value. We needed to ensure that we got the best expertise. A lot of the time, we actually had to educate outside counsel on the internal operations of the bank, because most outside counsel, just because of the nature of the work that they do, don't actually know necessarily what goes on the nitty-gritty of the bank. And we had a number of programs that we put in place in order to spend time with our external counsel that we had identified to basically lift the kimono to show them what goes on in the bank, all the internal, the clearinghouse information, et cetera, that they don't necessarily get to see. But to go back to your question, what did I want? Same as Ivor. I wanted a business partner. I wanted someone who understood my business. I wanted someone who wasn't going to charge me like a wounded buffalo, and at the end of the day, I would have to justify it internally. Was I getting the value for the fees that were being charged? I needed the right kind of law firm for the right kind of matter. It wasn't a case of going to the same firm every single time. First of all, I don't believe in putting one's eggs all in one basket. Second of all, we as the financial services institution had a responsibility to ensure that we upskilled a number of firms across the country. And thirdly, I was looking for someone to be a partner, but also an external advisor. So you have the law firm who has the very strong legalistic view. You have the in-house counsel who balances the very strong legal view with the business imperative. And then you have the business partner who basically is not really interested in the law and what it does. They just want to get their business up and running and make money. So for me, it was a balancing act between the law firm providing the strict legal guidance and my business who wanted to go ahead regardless, literally jump into the fire. So that's high level in-house counsel perspective.
Well, a couple of questions out of that. One is, economically, that is a very inefficient process. You're just a translator, right? You're translating between a set of data that a law firm gives you and a commercial need. It sounds like something that ought to be disintermediated. It sounds like a layer of cost that shouldn't be needed if law firms could deliver what the business needs, question mark. I think the other one is on risk. You know, you're talking quite rightly about assessing risk, and Ivor spoke about risk as well. You know, help me get up to speed on the culture, help me get up to speed, hold my hand, be a business partner. It's about assessing risk, solution orientation, right? But surely the big four, the accountancy firms, they're much better at assessing systemic risk, commercial risk, than an individual law firm who can quote chapter and verse. Why wouldn't you as in-house counsel go to Price Waterhouse to get risk monitors rather than going to just a law firm that gives you one facet of them?
So we wanted lawyers to help us from a commercial contracting perspective. The PwCs and EYs and all the others would have been brought in if we had a big enough project, but we needed the law firm, we needed the expertise, we needed the gravitas, we needed the knowledge and understanding holistically of the industry, of the regulations, etc. A lot of them were involved and have been involved in drafting the regulations. So
sorry, if I can come in there, what you needed is you needed people with emotional intelligence, and the big four don't bring you EQ. And I think that the biggest value that I went to my law firm, I didn't go to my accountants. I didn't want to know what my accountants said because my accountants would tell me all the reasons why I shouldn't do the deal. And my law firm was at least going to caution me
and try and help you,
and have the emotional intelligence to be able to guide me through the cultural issues, whereas my accountants would have just told me they're too difficult, stay home. Then I wouldn't have a business.
No, you're correct. You're correct. No, I don't think I can add anything to that. We never engaged with the Big Four consulting to provide us with legal services.
Interesting.
Thank heavens for small mercies.
Exactly, and the bank is still standing.
Yeah, you wait. Some of the biggest law firms in the world now sit carefully within accountancy firms, but they're not making a big splash about it yet because they're worried that the community will close them down. But Robert, this brings us greatly on. You are an emotionally intelligent, savvy, culturally aware business partner, clearly. And we very much hope that you'll do more and more in Central Asia as a result. However, you're in a minority, many would say, in law firms around the world. How is big law adapting itself to cope with what Kim and Ivor need from big law firms? How are you moving away from an hourly rate? How are you making sure that you're standing alongside and partnering your clients rather than just delivering legal advice? What's Weber Wentzel doing? What's Linklaters doing? And what should they be doing more of? Including unmuting your mic.
Costs extra.
There we go.
So thank you. And yeah. So the first thing is I just want to go back to something Kim had said, which I mean, I always thought, Kim, when you were GC in South Africa, I always thought I was the only firm of attorneys. I didn't know you had a plethora of them. So that's a new one on me. But anyhow, so what's big law doing that's different? And it's hard. I mean, big law is generally you have the firm with fixed costs, and it's very difficult to get them to understand that clients want you to take some of the risk with them, want that business partner rather than someone that's just charging the fees. The one thing that this COVID-19 pandemic has done is changed, and I can see how we've all changed mindset in terms of what the offering might be. So rather than have 20 people involved in drafting what doesn't need 20 people, you kind of get down and do it alone or do it with one other person. And I've watched that in terms of all of the law firms, speaking to all of my friends within the firms, that the numbers that are involved are dropping off from using of just too many people. But in terms, I mean, they're lawyers and lawyers. So hearing Kim and Ivor, I mean, I for many years was the Singapore government trade representative for Southern Africa. And that was because I was considered the business partner. So it wasn't just that you got the law done, it was that all the other parts, that you had someone with EQ, you had someone actually that got in and understood what the business was and what actually was required to be done. And you found the model, which was not always just charging the hours. It might be some kind of upside, but capped fee downside. So I mean, where you have those that are more innovative. Of the bigger firms now, I think we're all going to have to get a whole lot more innovative because the world has changed as we know it. And then going to just one other, just to pick up on the big four accounting, yes, they may have major law firms within them, Mark, but are they really a threat? So in terms of sector specialists, I would rather go to a sector specialist than a big knock shop, which is going to be able to offer me 400 lawyers at the same time. I'd rather get the specialist on board. And he's probably, or she's probably not inside the big four.
I think, sorry, Mark, what I'd like to add to Robert, and sorry, Robert, you weren't the only one that we used, but the relationship part, I don't think we've spoken about too much. It's about building a trust relationship with your attorneys, them understanding the way you work, what you need, anticipating it, them being willing to be flexible in terms of your needs and requirements. And particularly when you're working with big law firms that have these fee imperatives and budgets, etc. Whilst the attorney may be forward thinking and innovative in the way he approaches things, he does have a number of constraints within which he has to work. I think COVID is certainly going to be a game changer in terms of allowing the big firms to view the way they do business differently. I think there are a number of non-big law firms that are up and coming, that are on top of it, that are able to provide lawyers that are as capable as those you find in big law, but who don't come with the baggage that big law brings. I think what COVID has also shown is that I don't need to have a branded umbrella and a pen from a law firm, nor do I need a fabulous cappuccino, although, Robert, yours are good.
So if
No,
I
no,
may
the
interrupt Kim.
cappuccinos count. The cappuccinos count.
No, but interesting. So if I look at big law firms, so there was, I mean, we always had the biggies in the world, and then we watched the breakaway boutique startup, and they've been damn successful because, and it's, for me, it's not the big four. The threat to me was always the boutiques, the breakaway of really good sector specialists breaking away and doing their own thing. That in the last 5 years, I've watched them in many jurisdictions being sucked up back into the major law firms. And what do I think is happening now with COVID? I think those people, and it's your 7 pillars, people are sitting back going, do I need that huge structure? Do I need the 7-story building in the middle of Johannesburg's business district? Do I need the huge gym and canteen? You know, why wouldn't we just get those sector specialists doing what they do best, which is acting as such? And I think that's going to be, if you ask me, the big change that's coming. That's the change.
And Robert, I would agree with that. From a client's perspective, I'm actually nauseated by the excess of the big law firms. I just look around Johannesburg. The biggest buildings in the city of Sandton are occupied by the big law firms. And yes, the cappuccinos are fantastic, and the offices are phenomenal, and the scale is remarkable. But my immediate reaction when I walk into one of those offices is I'm being taken. It's actually bizarre.
May I ask you a question? If Robert was working from home and you didn't get the cappuccino, you would still use Robert?
I would absolutely still use Robert, because I would know that Robert is an expert in A, B, C, D, E, and he's my partner, and he needs me as much as I need him, and he's not going to oversell me. And I would know that, and I'd feel comfortable.
And you can buy your own cappuccino en route to Robert.
I don't even drink cappuccino.
Okay, well, your rooibos tea or whatever the hell you're going to be drinking.
I'd expect a whiskey, but the point is that you're 100% correct. And I don't think that big law is going to go away, because I do think that there is a role for big law with big corporates who have to have the umbrella and the diary and the notebook. Nobody got fired in a big corporation for taking advice from a Weber's. But by the same token, when you're talking to entrepreneurs, when you're talking to people like myself, who are budget conscious, who are entrepreneurial, who want the best man for the job, and who really don't need the rubber stamp, I'd rather not have that excess, which has become the mark of big law, not just in South Africa, but I think all over the world.
Robert, have you seen a big change since COVID started in the way your clients are engaging with you? Because obviously they don't have that wonderful cappuccino and your catering. They do have access to legal talent that you provide, but are you getting any positive feedback? Is it impacting the way you're engaging with your clients? Is there a huge difference, or is it business as usual?
No, Kim, there's a huge difference, because they're very happy to engage on Zoom or Microsoft Teams. They aren't wanting the cappuccino anymore. They aren't needing to have lunch. Their time. So with all of these new Zoom and Team, these things can be taped. So So most of my meetings, at the end of the meeting, they're saying, please send me the recording. So it's taking out so much wasted time. And the other thing it's taking out, and admittedly, I mean, I've been a lawyer for nearly 40 years, so I know the game, but the wasted time that you were talking about, the padded time, the client now knows exactly what they're getting. They know that, you know, the nonsense is out of it. It's a lot more streamlined. It's a lot more task orientated. There's a lot less nonsense talk. It's what are we doing? How do we, what's the deliverable you want? What do we need to do to get this thing done? That's really the change.
If I can interject, sorry, Kim, I'm going to pick up on that because I want to bring this on to technology now. I was at an event not so long ago, and there's a firm, a tech firm, which allows the client, the in-house team, to actually analyze the amount of time a lawyer spent on a document. So they can analyze the metadata, and when a lawyer says that they were on that document for 5 hours between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m., it'll actually say that they were on it for 10 minutes between 9 a.m. and 9:10. Now, it's fascinating how technology suddenly can start to interfere and disrupt the billing processes that law firms have got used to. And we know, for example, that AI is now performing better at reading and writing and comprehension than humans. We've seen that with the Stanford reading and writing test. We know that lawyers are performing better, we know that AI is performing better than lawyers at reviewing contracts, as we saw with the Law Geeks experiment. You know, it took the average lawyer 91 minutes to read 5 contracts, and the average lawyer was about 85% accurate in picking up things. The technology, the AI, it was 92% accurate and did it in 26 seconds. So we can see how technology is suddenly transforming, and really transforming, not automating. You know, so many law firms tell me they're excited because they've implemented a new SMS messaging platform for their clients. That's not law tech, that's automation. But real transformation, real disruption, it's coming, it's live. We're seeing exponential growth in the sector. The AIFC, the first financial center in the world to really concentrate now on legal technology as a strategic aim. Why? Because the fintech game it's run, it's doing well, but law tech is on the rise. And I believe that lawyers that use AI, so I believe that AI won't kill lawyers, but the lawyers that use AI will be killed by lawyers that don't. And, you know, that was ridiculous, of course, the other way around. Lawyers that use AI will kill lawyers that don't. That is, lawyers empowered by technology will be able to serve their clients better. What's our thoughts on how technology will disrupt the provision of legal services? And to what extent, Ivor, if you're looking for someone who's culturally aware and emotionally intelligent, technology doesn't fulfill that. So would you want a lawyer supported by AI, or would you prefer a lawyer supported by lawyers?
So you know what, I think it actually comes back to billing. Because the law firms that I've spoken to who are looking at law tech are looking at it not from the perspective of how they can save me money, but how they can create more billable line items. And I'm sorry if I'm sounding cynical, but you know, this is typically how it works. And I look at this from the perspective of I want to work with a law firm who uses AI to reduce my costs and give them, the individuals I'm working with, more time to spend on analysis, on negotiating support, on making sure that they're checking the output of the AI. So I'm hugely in support of this. And I mean, we've started using law tech internally in place of expanding our in-house legal department, because exactly the software that you're talking about that compares agreements, that analyzes documents. I mean, we're using this very effectively, and we're using it to do the grudge work that we would have otherwise been paying lawyers a fortune to do. So now I can pay people like Robert fees to pay time and attention to doing stuff that the AI can't do. So I think that the future of law is going to be about people. It's not going to be about AI. And I think this is where the big firms, the mega firms, may be going to get it wrong. And I think that what's going to happen is you're going to find more and more small niche firms who are going to use artificial intelligence in their back end, and you're going to find them giving those services for free so that they can be charged for their human billable hours. And I think that's very exciting. I think that the law firms that embrace that are going to be the ones who really are going to thrive into the future.
Can you think of such a firm, a niche, novel, innovative, a creative firm using AI to support their clients? Ivor, have you heard of such a thing recently?
I'm busy writing Kim's business plan for her.
Thank you, Ivor.
Now, Robert, presumably at this stage, you're so excited that you're just about to pack your bags, wait for the airport to open, jump on the plane and move out of big law and join Seven Pillars Law. Am I right in thinking that? What are Seven Pillars? Where are the smaller niche firms going to struggle? And why do you think that big law will actually come up with innovative client-led AI-based solutions to help them?
So I mean, all of the major law firms in the world are looking at AI, but in the main, I would agree with what Ivor was saying, that in the main, it's not how do I make it cheaper for you, it's how do I bill more. So that's on the one side. On the other, there is, so if one looks right now, Mark, and I know it's not quite answering your question, but if one looks right now at the COVID pandemic, and if you look at every analysis of what's changing in the world, or what business will be down, what business will be up. So what business is going to be down will be airlines and hotels, and what's going to be up is going to be fintech, medtech, healthcare, etc. And I'm not just talking from a South African perspective. I'm saying from an African perspective, and Ivan knows this because we've had this conversation. Things are moving across the continent at a rate that you cannot begin to believe. And suddenly, the miner of yesterday is going, okay, I'm not going to be mining for a while, but I should be putting my money into healthcare transactions. And in that regard, that is moving so fast. If you ask me where legal tech, where AI is, that's where it needs to be, because the days of the mega deal, and they will come again, because when companies are in trouble, someone else will buy them. But things are moving that fast that people don't have the time and inclination to pay silly fees for something that could be done really quickly. So you're a simple shareholders agreement, simple sale agreement. What's your small version of project financing? Things are that's what I'm actually right now sitting and watching happen. But I'm actually grabbing it and going with it.
I think that's right.
I think what I love is the energy. Do you feel the energy in terms of the conversation, whether it's big law, in-house or business? Everybody's looking at how technology can make things better. I love this analogy we've got there about the humanity. It's the humanity which adds value. It's what lawyers, they build trust. They're like doctors, right? They build trust. There's someone that a person can go to, bounce ideas, know that they're going to get solid, dependable advice. But the idea of paying them to read bits of paper, which can be better done by technology, that seems to be getting general acceptance. Now, Kim, in terms of, from an in-house point of view, using technology or using law firms that use technology, any concerns, or do you think that's the future?
I definitely think it's the future. I don't think it's industry dependent. Certainly from my perspective, if I were in my previous role, it would be something that I would embrace with open arms for a number of reasons. Firstly, and probably most importantly or least importantly from a cost perspective, because as I mentioned, budgets, legal costs or grudge purchases, Ivor, you mentioned that too. It's not like going out to buy a new car, a pair of golf clubs, or in my case, a pair of shoes. It's like going to the dentist or going to the doctor. It's not something you really, really want to spend a lot of money on. So from that perspective, AI, anything that could improve, first of all, the billings, the outgoings would be great. As you mentioned, the accuracy is higher, so why wouldn't I? It then frees up my legal experts, my trusted business partners and my advisors to actually get involved in things where they can really add value. I don't need them to read pages and pages of documents if a machine can do it more accurately, because why would I do that? I could then direct them into an area where they could provide me with something that is beneficial and valuable to me, rather than not. So yes, I would, for sure.
David, is this a good time to turn this over for questions?
Yes, I think it would be. My colleague Jan is paying attention to the screen, and he will look for people who have raised their hand using their icon in the bottom right of their screen to ask questions. And then he would call upon each one of you individually. So please, if there are any questions whatsoever from the audience of participants, please do so now.
And can people just, if they don't want to appear, because they might be in their pajamas, if they don't want to appear, David, can they just send a question in? Will we be able to see questions that are posted on the chat?
I think that the Jan will be able to see that coming in, and he can read the question, or they can simply come in with voice and not their video image if they would like, if they would rather speak the question.
Let me just make one clarification. You don't have to turn on the video. You can just raise hand, and I will, give you a voice. So therefore, you don't have to turn on the video. Just if you have a question, press the raise hand button, and we'll let you ask the question.
So I'm going to pause for a moment to see. I always think in life, it's the leaders are the ones that ask the first question, because what you notice in conferences is there's a reluctance to ask the first question. Then when one person asks the question, everybody sort of piles in. So who's going to be the leader on this call and ask the first question? And remember, there's no such thing as a silly question, or as my boss used to say, there's no such thing as a silly question unless you ask it twice. Any questions out there, Jan?
Yep, there is one. There is one.
I see a hand. You are a leader, sir. Whoever's put their hand up, thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Well, first, thanks a lot. It's very interesting. The question I have is semi-related to the topic, I guess. But I've been reading some news about courts like the judges being replaced by machines, and I was wondering what do you think about it? And the emotional intelligence, I believe, is quite important when it comes to making decisions, especially in court. So yes, what do you think about the replacement, and do you think that's actually gonna end up being in our real lifetime, but we're gonna be dealing with the robots judges? Thank you.
Well, it's happening, from my point of view, it's happening now. And if you look at the statistics, there's a big survey was done in the US where they matched a piece of AI against human judges on bail applications. And as you know, it's a useful test bed, because for bail, all you have to determine is, will the person commit an offense if out on bail, and will they turn up to the next hearing? Simple, right? So they gave the computer and the judges exactly the same files, and they measured how the two did. Now, the judges had had 30 years of experience. They looked into the eyes of the defendant, and they looked through their file, and they made an assessment, and they were confident that they got it right very often. But unfortunately, the data suggests that AI gets it right 41% more often than human judges. Now, if your livelihood is threatened, if someone's about to decide whether you should get locked up or not, and you know that the technology is 41% more accurate, I know which judge I'd rather have. No inbuilt prejudices, no inbuilt background issues, no had a hangover from a late night the night before, nothing like that, just pure logic. We see in Shanghai now a piece of technology where you plug the case file in, it not only tells the judge the relevant law and the relevant precedent, which is amazing because in China it's not a system based on precedent, but it also writes the judgment for the judge to review. And we see countries like Brazil with 100 million cases backlogged. We see India with 29.2 million cases backlogged, cases that run for 40 or 50 years. And access to justice, which is, justice, it can't be right if you're 40 years waiting for a decision. So I think that there is a need in many countries for a more robotic approach to determining cases. I think that we're seeing it tested in jurisdictions and we're seeing positive results. But you highlighted, to my mind, the important distinction, and Ivor's mentioned the same thing, which is mercy, clemency, humanity. We are yet to program a piece of technology to interpret facts and to apply clemency. So I think what's most likely to happen, certainly in our lifetime, as we're already seeing, is that the AI will produce a framework because it can get through, it never sleeps, it doesn't need holidays. The AI will clear through the backlog, and then possibly human judges will get involved at an appeal stage. That's my estimate of it. What do the others think?
So if I look at, and I've done a huge amount of work in India over the years, and it's probably, and I've worked pretty much in every continent, but India for me is the most interesting because it appears, you've got some great jurists there, but it appears to be a simple, but it has the look and feel of litigating in England. But some of the statistics that I've seen is that it takes an average case 15 years to get through the court and have a judgment. Now, there's nothing quite like being the defendant on that. If you want to play it for 15 years, there's lots you can do in that period. But if you put a plaintiff or applicant, 15 years will kill you and it'll suck up your money. And there we go back into the lawyers that Ivor doesn't like. So, you're forced into doing things that you wouldn't want to do, and you're forced into resolving stuff that you shouldn't necessarily resolve only because the cost will kill you and the time will kill you. So I'm a firm believer that if you could have that electronic judge to take all the nonsense out of the system, it's got to be the way that we're going to go in the future.
Isn't the answer that one needs to have a combination of? Isn't it the same as legal tech in a law firm, where one needs to encourage the use of this technology to make the judges more efficient and more accurate, and cross-check the judges rather than replace the judges? And I think that AI, the aerospace and defense industry, we deal with AI every single day. And everybody talks about, how artificial intelligence is going to take over the battlefield, and there are going to be all of these robot wars and no human beings in the game. The battlefield and the courtroom are very similar places. You cannot make decisions that affect people's lives without other people in the loop. So even the most sophisticated defense equipment in the world that is completely automated is never allowed to make a decision that affects somebody else's livelihood or life. And I think that's where this has got to go from a legal point of view. I would hate to see courtrooms that are completely computerized. I think that would be a catastrophe, but a combination would work great for me.
Mark, I think that ties in with your humanity solution or suggestion. So from my perspective, and Robert, further to what you said about in India and some cases taking 15 years, I was the head of litigation for the bank for many, many years. And I was the one who was going to court and fighting the battles. You have obviously the big bank against potentially other big institutions, and then again against the man in the street. And as you said, Robert, for a defendant to draw something out for years and years and years is often very advantageous, and we would settle potentially just not to have to go through an inefficient and often inappropriate court system. So I agree with you as well, Ivor, that I don't believe that there will be a total removal of the human element. I do think there has to be some sensibility and some humanity and some human judgment at a point in time. But I do think certainly there will be huge value in expediting and finalizing matters that have been in the system for years and years and years, and also others where you don't actually need human input. So here's the contract, this is what it says, you didn't do it, you're in breach, these are the damages, the end, and here's the judgment. And off you go. I mean, that would be wonderful.
That would be so cool.
Leave it to us.
Yeah.
That principle, this Asimov's laws, aren't they? That principle that technology must never be allowed to kill a human, a technology must never disobey an order given by a human unless it breaches the first law. That was, I think, well considered in all use of technology until the Americans started to give the kill decision to a robot. And so I suppose my question is, if we've already got police forces empowering technology to determine whether or not to kill, how long is it before we allow judges to determine, AI judges to determine if someone should go to jail? Do you see a big distinction between the two? Is Asimov's laws, are they sort of dead, a bit like Moore's law has gone with the creation of the Sycamore processor? We've seen Moore's laws sort of disappeared. Have we got the same with Asimov's laws?
Listen, I deal with Asimov's laws every single day, and quite frankly, I'm very fortunately not that experienced in matters of the courtroom, because I, as a client, have spent my life trying to stay as far away from courtrooms as I possibly can.
It's a good strategy, Ivor.
Absolutely. Although I have to tell you, the distinction, and this is interesting, between big law and niche lawyers is big law will always, I must be reasonable here, but often push you in the direction of going to court because that's how you bill the most. Whereas a niche lawyer who's there to solve, who's a problem solver, will guide you against going to court. And by the way, I've never won a matter in court. It's never happened in my entire business career. Never happened that I've won a matter in court. Good lawyers, bad lawyers, good matters, bad matters, never come out a winner. But in the context of Asimov's law, I think that if anybody ever believes that you can automate these principles and that you could start dealing with life or death issues completely autonomously, I think that would be the end of humanity as we know it. It would be a proper catastrophe. And Mark, my advice to you is, if anybody asks you to consult on those matters, deny.
Run
Do not get involved.
Now, David, are you trying to? Do you have a question, or are you trying to close us down?
I could listen to this all night, honestly. I think we may have one more question. Jan, was there one more question that came in?
Hi, David. It's Ardak. I'm not sure if you remember, we used to work together.
Yes, I do very well. Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks. Well, I raised my hand. I don't know, maybe somebody else has a question, because I would like to bring one more issue with the IE in court.
Go ahead, please.
There's, of course, there's lots of different issues, especially when it comes to locking down a person for a lifetime or whatnot. But what's my concern is, I don't have as much experience as you guys do. I've been practicing lawyer for 7 years now, and most of the time I spent in courts, and that's something I enjoyed. To me, fighting battles in court is something like a game of minds or something, whether you are smarter, faster of the opposite lawyer. But then if we do actually end up introducing the robot judges and the machine judges, then there's going to be a fight between a human lawyer and a judge, or we will eventually end up getting rid of lawyers who are actually the court lawyers, and introducing machine lawyers, because a person cannot fight a robot judge, right? And our job is not to it's an ethical issue, but the idea is you got to win the case by any means, right? Whether it's a corporate case or a criminal case. So we will end up fighting against machines, and that's, I think, is very important. Well, at least to me.
Ardat, can I ask a question? In your court experience, when you say win by any means, is your primary duty to the court or to the client?
Of course, the client.
I see. So, I see. Because in most systems, the lawyer's primary duty is to the court, to the judge, to make sure the judge has all of the information he or she needs to decide the case, not just one side, right?
No, I don't mean.
Know that.
Sorry, I don't mean to,
Well,
like, I'm not saying that I'm
am I breaking new ground here, guys? I'm really sorry. I think we may have gone AI crazy today. Is the future of law that lawyers act in the best interests of the justice system or their client? Mike, we're really on cutting edge stuff now. Sorry, Ardat.
No, it's okay. Well, I don't, when I say that to the client, the idea is not that I'm trying to like cheat or lie or hide something. That's not the point. The point is, any situation could be explained, interpreted the way you want it to be interpreted, especially in the corporate cases. I'm not sure if you would agree with me, but white is never white unless you want it to be white. You know what I mean? Like, you could play with the ideas and then end up winning the case for your client. And of course, by all means, I don't mean to cheat. I mean to invest more time to win.
Yeah, but what you'll find, Ardat, twofold, as you develop in your practice, that one, your reputation is governed by the way you behave against other lawyers in court, and I think that sort of go for victory approach can sometimes alienate lawyers within the legal community. But I think much more importantly, the question to ask is, if you asked Ivor, what do you want from a dispute? He doesn't care a monkey's, I would imagine, whether he wins or loses. What he wants is to get paid, and to get paid sooner rather than later. And the best way to get paid is to do a deal. It's never to hope that a judge who's never been in business, wasn't there when the contract was negotiated, has never actually negotiated a commercial transaction, determines on a point of law that was never considered when the deal was done. And I think that if you talk to most in-house counsel, what in-house counsel tell you is, get me an answer. I don't care what the answer is. Get me an answer, make it cheap, make it quick, and help me settle. That's what they ask for. I think going to court is a failure for most in-house counsel and business people. I don't know what you think, Kim and Ivor.
Yeah,
No, you're 100% correct. 100% correct. By the time it gets close to going to court, you've failed. And whether you are for or against, it doesn't matter. The day a case gets to a point where there can't be a commercial resolution, then both sides have failed.
Yeah, for me as well. I mean, obviously from a reputational perspective, to go to court is not ideal. I wouldn't go to court just to fight something, just to extend the duration of a judgment against the bank if I knew that we were in the wrong. A lot of litigants will fight simply because they know it's going to take a hell of a long time and people will tire of it. So for sure, to get money for the bank is certainly better than spending a huge amount to get nowhere at the end of the day, and then often with an empty judgment.
And the other thing is reputationally, and Ardat, I mean, I say I've been doing this for 40 years and I'm no longer a litigator, although I did litigate many years ago. But the one thing I learned is that the world's a small place and people know your reputation gets out. So when Mark said a little earlier, I mean, the word is out that you might be a fighter, but what's your success rate? What's the costs? And initially, I mean, my first 7 years of litigation was fantastic. And then I sort of actually get sick because I was having to live this insane dream of being in perpetual battle. And then the roosters come home because the attorneys that you've really given a hard time on the way up will remember you. And when it's time for you to ask the favor is no longer there. And people they always remember there's the little black book of Robert did me one, I'm going to get him back. And in the end, I learned what you're hearing from everyone else on the panel. I learned that the best mechanism in terms of litigation is to find a settlement that is acceptable to everyone. It might not be the greatest because everyone wants to win, but when you've got someone else's bank account that you're dealing with, that's easy. But when it's eating a hole, then you've got to actually know when it's time to get out.
And I think it's a win-win for everyone. It may not be you get everything you want, they get everything they want, but certainly to resolve it where both parties don't feel too hard done by. They may not be 100% happy, but they both walk away satisfied. I think that's a good outcome.
Yeah.
I think the best advice I can give, having sat on it as a judge for a while, is, the best outcomes are where everybody's unhappy. No one feels that they've won. Everyone feels they've had to take something off the table. They all leave slightly disgruntled, because those are the ones that stick. If one side feels that they've won and the other side feels that they lose, actually you just find that the dispute continues to boil under. But David, I'm conscious of the time, and I personally wanted to thank everybody involved. I think there's a lot of wisdom today, a lot of wisdom. My personal takeaway, and if I may, David, ask the others what their takeaway is, but my personal takeaway is that lovely line: the future of law is the people. It's not something we hear often enough. We forget how hard it is to be a lawyer. We forget how hard it is to study, to get qualified, to maintain our profession, to build our reputation. We're only as good as our last piece of work. It's a very precarious profession to be in, and reputation and trust is everything for us. And yet at the same time, we're constantly under attack. It seems to me that alongside politicians, we always seem to be pilloried the most. And I think it's wonderful to have one of the most successful business people in growing markets around the world say that the future of law is in people and emotional intelligence. I hope everyone on this call feels proud of that and pleased that we can hopefully play our part. Perhaps I can open it up to the other panelists to give their takeaway from the session.
So for me, thanks so much, Mark. I am wholly in violent agreement with everything you've said. I think the humanity aspect is not something any machine is ever going to do. I do think it's now imperative that law gets a move on and moves away from its big buildings, its big overheads, its big expenses, and actually listens to what its clients want and need. So that seems to have been lost along the way. What does Ivor want, and how do we give it to him so that he's happy without charging him a fortune? So that's kind of my takeaway of the whole thing.
Well, I think we're all in agreement here. I can tell you from years of experience that the best lawyers I've ever worked with are the best human beings. And in many cases, those people have become lifelong advisors and lifelong friends. And that's the first thing that I look for. And I think it's very encouraging to me to hear that that's what's come out of this discussion and this debate. And it's actually restored my faith in the legal fraternity, because I think that for a bunch of lawyers to be openly discussing these issues is really, really positive, and I think bodes very well for the profession. But I also think that in an environment where culture is as important as an understanding of the law, and in an environment where business today is about agreement, not disagreement, the best human beings will always be the best lawyers.
Wow, how does one follow that? So I mean, I funny enough, I tend to agree with you, and the one thing I always am so incredibly proud of is that a substantial part of my client base started working with me in the 1980s, and they're still clients of mine, although some of the management have retired or moved on or passed on. So
have you put your feet up yet?
But for me, the takeaway from this is the world as we know it has changed. It was changing because of the likes of the 7 pillars and doing things faster, quicker, and cheaper. And then this pandemic came, and that in itself is basically going to force all of us into thinking differently, into thinking quicker and cheaper and faster in the way that 7 pillars is going.
Sorry, just 2 seconds. Just very interesting, Robert. You're actually an anomaly, because I know a lot of people who work with Robert Applebaum. Half of them don't even know what firm you're with. And I think that the success of a great lawyer is to be able to say that that's my reputation. And I think that if the future of big law is going to be in people like yourselves, where the firm just becomes a shared workspace and enabling environment. And huge credit to you for having achieved that in your career. I don't know many lawyers who've achieved that.
Thank you.
Wow. Excellent. If anyone has nothing further, thank you so much on behalf of the Academy of Law to the panelists for your insightful, relevant, and humanistic perspective on legal tech. From the AIFC standpoint, Mark had mentioned earlier that legal tech is truly a strategic focus of the AIFC. From the Academy standpoint, we hope to be the platform for knowledge sharing discussions like this, but it's not only knowledge sharing, it's knowledge development. It's through this dynamic of exchanging ideas that new thoughts, new revelations, new insights evolve. And that's what we're here to try to do, is to encourage that and to create a platform where experts like yourselves, insightful, humanistic, talented, well-educated experts, can feel comfortable coming here, leveraging this forum, and participate in the overall objective of manifesting what's best in the human spirit. And Mark, I think Leonardo da Vinci would agree that that's the definition of art, the manifestation of what's best in the human spirit. On a closing note, I wanted to mention that the AIFC has demonstrated its commitment to legal tech by forming an advisory council. It was just established. The AIFC Law Tech Advisory Council was formed with the aim of developing the legal tech ecosystem at the AIFC, which can improve the efficiency and the quality of legal services and make them more accessible. To achieve these goals, the AIFC Law Tech Advisory Council will promote cooperation between the AIFC and international stakeholders like yourselves in the field of legal tech, and will provide strategic guidance and recommendations for the development of a world-class regulatory framework on legal tech. That's all I had to say. I wanted to thank you all again. Please join us again. Open forum, open platform for any of you to help develop these ideas and technologies. And many thanks to all of our participants. We hope to see you again soon. Stay tuned, many more to come. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Well done, David. Well done, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Great discussion.